Hey everybody, Mike with Games Play Badly, and today on Session Zero I have Heiner, who is a creator of a 5e campaign setting called Braith, Shattered Realities. The conversation that we had was great. It's just unique. The way that he's doing it is incredible. It was all inspired by a map that he was creating, and he decided to write an entire game around it. So this is incredible stuff. He's a great person. He has a lot of really insightful things to say, and on top of that, his setting might actually be going up on Roll20 as a sponsored setting. So that's pretty incredible. So I don't have my Gem Firefly shirt on today. I have this one on, which is a piece of garbage. And I'm using this as an example of what not to do. I needed something for a convention that I was going to, for a Star Trek convention. And I ordered this off eBay. Turns out it had to come from Germany. I don't know why. When I got it, it was the completely wrong color. It was supposed to be orange. This is yellow. And when I wanted to return it, I was going to have to pay for shipping, which cost more than the shirt cost to begin with. So, and on top of it, it's not soft and nice and awesome and breathable. So, if you don't want piece of crap shirts and you want good customer service, people who actually care about you, then make sure you go to gemfirefly.com. Go and peruse everything that they have to offer. And when you get ready to check out, use our code BADLY15, BADLY15 for 15% off your order. Heiner is right around the corner, and I can't wait for you to meet him. That interview starts now. Heiner, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for coming on. We've, as with a lot of my interviews lately, had some weird scheduling issues. One of the issues was I think I got into a car accident for one of our interviews.
Yeah, I'm happy it's working now that we got
Yes.
together here.
Now you're all the way in Germany.
That's true. Yeah.
So that was, we had to figure out some scheduling there. And your wonderful accent is German all the way. So there you go.
I have no idea what accents I actually talk. So I just, school English plus all the shows I watch on Netflix and Amazon. And that kind of influenced my English language.
Right. Yeah, they've influenced ours as well. So you're not the only one. So we're here to talk about an exciting project that's been around for a little bit. And why don't you tell me more about Braith?
Yeah, Brave is what I call a psychological high fantasy setting. So basically the core of it is that it's a setting where worlds have gone through an apocalypse and there are these secret mysterious powers from the dimension of Brave that appear on a world as it is dying and choose a champion and give this champion the power to rescue parts of that shattered world and create a new one from it, which then shifts into the dimension of Brave. And that is the core idea. And so it's very magical. There are like lands that totally don't fit together, that are neighboring each other. Like you move through a meadow and just step into an Arctic scenario just 5 feet further. There are also magical influences through the creation of the world, like hybrid creatures that are created, new races that are spawned during this process of world creation and so on. But that is just one part of it. The other part of it is that I'm very, very deep into the psychological topics, therapy, mental health and all that. And on a meta level, basically, this influenced the whole setting. So you can play it totally without it. You don't have to use any of it. But everything I do is through a lens of psychology and of character arcs and of personal growth. And that is, to me, something that is woven deeply into the entire setting.
That sounds amazing. I say this to creators when they come on the show. I just was imagining exactly what you were saying, and it sounds like it's a blast. Having different biomes right next to each other and being able to move almost, it's almost borderless. You just kind of all of a sudden you're in a completely different biome, or a completely different juxtaposition of what the world normally would be. So during that process where the champion is, so Are you playing through that process of building the world in your game?
No, not really. You could do it as a game master, of course, but from what I have created so far, my current focus is a world called Ashandri, and it was created only 4 years ago. And the predecessor world called Earth was destroyed by an ancient dragon god that reappeared in the world and went power hungry and also mad. And there's a whole big backstory there. And this world was destroyed 4 years ago and then shifted to Wraith. So it is a bit settled. It's like, it's not totally right after the apocalypse, but it's still very present and everyone is still highly traumatized and just trying to get their stuff together.
Yeah, okay, so that makes more sense. Now, this is a 5e based setting, correct?
Exactly.
So now, when did you start playing Dungeons and Dragons?
I think I was a little over 20. I actually started role-playing in, I think I was 14 or 16 or something at school with some friends, but it was like, let's say, a German clone of D&D. And it's a nice setting, a bit smaller, everything. I have no idea how it's evolved since then. I haven't played it since then, but I actually got into contact with D&D through a friend who had a group. And I joined that group and we just played so often back then. And I fell in love with D&D. And especially, I have to say, Planescape, which is my favorite setting, aside from my own, of course.
Planescape is not something a lot of people remember, to be honest. It wasn't, I'm not sure that it was necessarily well received. I mean, I never really saw it used that often.
Yeah, I think the core problem of Planescape was that a lot of it was really written for the dungeon master. So there is a lot of stuff you can get, like there is a book called Faces of Evil, which basically defines and explains the culture and psychology of fiends, so demons and devils and all that stuff. And it's amazing to read and I love it. But what should a player do with it?
Right. Right. Yeah, there were several different modules that were put out by TSR at the time. They were definitely more Dungeon Master driven. So the Dungeon Master got a lot of enjoyment out of it, but the players really never got to see that unless they were a DM themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So from the mental health side of, is this a labor of love for you? Are you into profession?
Not really. I was always interested in the topic of mental health since I think early 20s for my age. But I actually have been thinking about going into that profession. I haven't really decided that. I've made a few trainings in that area and I might go into the direction of becoming a natural health practitioner. It's called Heilpraktiker here in Germany. And there is one version of it where you focus on psychology. And I'm considering to go that way, but I haven't finally decided if it's really my path yet.
It's one of those things where I was just at my last interview, I talked to somebody and it seems like the creators create things that they want for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So this was obviously a labor of love for you from the standpoint of your fascination with mental health and then also loving D&D. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And also I think good storytelling is always about understanding the problems of people in their minds, understanding the mind, basically. And just as I mentioned this Faces of Evil book, it's about the mind, and I loved it. And I love reading things like that, and I love creating things like that.
Huh. Yeah, from those type of, especially like psychological thrillers and things like that, are something that are very interesting to watch unfold, especially in a RPG space. And so there are a couple different, there are actually a couple board games. One of them is called Mysterium, where you're basically doing interpretation. There's no real communication. You're interpreting kind of clues that you get and things like that, which is all it's very psychological because the person who is presenting the clues has to understand you know, how you would interpret these things. So when those things are used in a game setting, they can be really fascinating and they can be very telling as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also an aspect of, well, in therapy, it's called psychoeducation. So basically, while reading or playing these things, you learn about how the mind works, and you might actually learn about yourself that way. I'm cautious about using D&D for therapy outside of an actual therapy setting.
Sure.
But, take what you want, what helps you grow.
Right. And I think that's going to be really interesting. Now, how long has the game actually been available?
Since February this year.
Okay.
So I've been working on it since summer last year, a bit more than half a year. And I released it officially on 1st of February.
So if people are looking to get your game, where could they find it?
It's actually freely available at ttrpg.com. And there's also adventures and other stuff available at DriveThruRPG and Patreon. And since this week, actually also on Roll20, 2 adventures up there. And I am...
There's some kind of big news.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really big milestone for me. And I am currently dreaming, really bringing my setting to Roll20. And it's something I definitely want to do. I have no idea how much time I need for that and how much work it will be. I already heard that it's the most complicated product for a creator on Roll20. So I guess I have quite the challenge ahead of me. I might also get some help to do it. I don't know yet, but it's definitely something that I want to do.
Well, that's super exciting. I mean, the fact they're reaching out to you to put your setting on the platform is huge. I've used Roll20 in the past, and they don't pick just anybody to put stuff up there. So that's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to develop the Wraith as a whole?
A bit more than half a year, I think. It actually started, I got the map software Incarnate, and I was fiddling around with it and just experimenting how things work. And then I started making this world map. And I didn't think about a setting or something. I was just experimenting with Incarnate. And while I was creating this map, all these ideas came. And basically that was the beginning of the setting. And for quite a while, I was not even sure if I would release it publicly or make it commercial or whatever. But the more I worked on it, the more it really became a dream and a passion. And it was, I think, in October or November last year that I finally decided to really go commercial with it. But I also decided to keep the core setting free for 2 reasons, actually. Both because some people simply can't afford it, and I didn't want to block them out. If someone wants to play it and they just can't afford it, go for it. It's free, it's there. But the other thing is actually also that being a writer is basically part of who I am. It's not just something I do. And I want this setting to be out there. I don't want it limited behind a paywall. If people like it so much that they want to pay for it on Roll20 later, whatever, or as a Patreon, help me expanding it, I'm super thankful. But of course, I hope to earn a lot of money with it and maybe one day live from it. That's the dream. I think it's every writer's dream to live from their work. But the main reason why I did it is really because it's a work of passion and I just wanted to bring it out there. And it was the only logical conclusion for me to do it for free, even if it's not financially the best decision.
Well, yeah, I think there's a barrier to adoption, right? So it could be money, it could be various other things. If you give it away for free, you're allowing people to see one of your works. And if they like that, then there's going to be other stuff that will be up there that they can buy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's fantastic. The thought of the world is just the visual of a defender kind of, trying to remake this world and put it back together again. It's visually in my mind, it's so epic.
Yeah, it's pretty big, especially because what I'm creating right now, this world of Chandri, I started with this core region or starting region, however you want to call it. It's basically very traditional classic fantasy because it's the easiest to get into. And beyond that, there are so many different regions that I plan to detail, to flesh out. Right now, I'm working on the Ember Wastelands, which is basically Arabian Nights inspired, but the dominant race are actually a special sub-race of orcs, the Ember Orcs. And there is also fire elemental influence very strong in that region. And there is like a jungle area and so on. And all that is just one world, because each of these worlds are connected through massive chains, the so-called world chains. And so this first world is just the beginning. And I have very specific plans to really flesh out those other worlds when I get to it sometime in the far future.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. There's a lot of content that you can create for this. I mean, you built it in a way that nothing is a head scratch like this doesn't make sense. This is weird. It's supposed to not make sense because of what the history of it, you know, so that's very interesting. Yeah, very, very good. So from the standpoint of D&D, when you started, what was your favorite class?
Well, my first character that I created was back in 2nd edition, and it was a bard. I have to specify, not a horny bard.
Yeah, right, exactly. They all are now.
But actually, it was really a very traditional bard in the meaning that he actually went and made concerts in between adventures and everything. And he had patrons and a following and all that. And I loved the versatility of the bard. And that back then in 2nd edition, he was really a jack of all trades with this variety of skills you had, and magic and fighter and everything. And I feel like it's been toned down a bit in the 5th edition, and I'm not such a big fan of the 5th edition bard anymore. But in 2nd edition, that was my absolute favorite class.
I just heard you telling me that you're going to create some new content about a bard class that you want to make. That's what I heard.
Might be. I actually haven't created any classes really. I have created a few warlock patrons, but not completely new subclasses otherwise. But I do have some ideas, so we'll see.
There you go. I'm going to have links down to everything below, to your Patreon and to the website where you can actually get the game. So yeah, I'll point down a drive-through. Everything will be there for you if you're looking for any of Heiner's work, which I'm sure you will after you read some of the stuff, because it's incredible. Now, from the Roll20 standpoint, do we have a timetable on that?
Not really. I have my first call about how to create a compendium on Monday, so in 2 days. And I think after that, I will begin to make, well, a schedule might be too much, because I have a day job and I just do everything for Brave whenever I find the time.
Sure.
But it is something that I really, really want to do. So it's a high priority for me.
I have something I do in my interviews. If you've watched any of them, I do like a lightning round. So I'm gonna ask you some questions, and that way people get a chance to know you. Okay. I always ask this one, and this will be interesting coming from you, because I asked this from somebody from the UK and they have a completely different answer. Cake or pie? Which one do you like better?
I think it depends on the weather.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, I think during summer, like today, it's super hot here. I would definitely prefer cake. I think in winter times, definitely pie.
A nice warm slice of pie.
Yeah.
What is your favorite pie?
Apple pie. I love apple pie.
Me too. I don't eat as much of it, but I always like it with a little vanilla ice cream on the side.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Very tasty. So out of spring and out of fall, which one do you like better?
I'm actually a spring to summer guy. I love the warmth. I mean, up to a certain degree, like what we have today here is too much.
Sure.
But I like hot weather, and I love basically lying in the sun for as long as I can and just enjoying sunlight and the warmth. So definitely spring to summer. But I think every season really has its advantages. I'm really not much of a winter guy when it gets really cold and snowy, because I freeze fast.
Yeah, that happens. So from the standpoint of your game being basically inspired by a map, what is your favorite environmental setting that you have right now in your game? And what's been the most fun to write?
I think it's actually what I'm working on right now, the Ember Wastelands, because since a kid, I loved these Arabian Nights stories, and there's these movies from the, I don't know, 1950s, 1960s, I love them and I still love watching them today. I am aware of, let's say, cultural problems in these movies, and there are things that should be discussed. And I'm actually trying to be pretty sensitive about that in my own writing. But I just love this atmosphere of magic, and for me personally, as a Western guy, very exotic setting, and also adding my own little twists, like this domination of Ember Orc culture, where the orcs are actually the most advanced race in that land, in that nation, and everyone else is basically living alongside them. And these are things I just love working on. And there are so many opportunities to bring in new little twists and magical ideas. And there are also so many spirit beings there, the fire elementals that live alongside mortals in the cities, in the Ember Wastelands. It's just so much fun writing all that.
Yeah, very good visuals too. I can only imagine. That's awesome.
Talking of visuals, I'm also working with a variety of artists, and getting all these into really painted pictures is such an awesome experience.
I'm sure.
It's really like I love having a rough idea, giving it to an artist, and when I get this image back, I only then flesh out all the details, because the image itself is also an inspiration for me working on the content.
Very good. That's awesome. I like to hear that. Yeah. So, well, Heiner, it was a pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me. It's been too long. I apologize, but we finally did it. And Braith sounds awesome. And I'm going to download it so that way I can read it for myself. And anybody who wants any more information on this, all the information will be down below. And Heiner's on Twitter. I'll make sure his Twitter handle is included. As a matter of fact, it's going to be on the screen right below the picture there. And if you want to reach out and talk to him, if you know about Roll20 and how he may have to do some of the setup stuff, maybe reach out to him and offer a helping hand as well.
Thank you so much for this.
Of course, my pleasure. Let's talk again. I like getting progress reports as things go on. So let's figure out if something new comes up. Definitely message me and we'll talk about it all over again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thanks.
Have a great time.
You too.